listening to Vet Candy.
This program is brought to you by Hometown Veterinary Partners. Learn how you can get on the pathway to partnership at hometownvetpartners.com.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Vet Candy IRL, and I'm your host, Dr. Shannon Gregoire.
Well, thank you everyone for coming. We're so glad that you're here to this webinar with Vet Candy and Hometown Veterinary Partners. My name is Dr. Shannon Gregoire, and I'm so excited to have you all here today. So for those of you who don't know, Hometown Veterinary Partners helps veterinary professionals build the career that they want with their path to partnership. You can learn more at hometownvetpartners.com/vetcandy. So today we're going to cover the top 5 mistakes to avoid in vet school. So if you're anxious about finishing vet school and not sure what you're going to do afterwards, or even you can learn more at hometownvetpartners.com/vetcandy. So today we're going to cover the top 5 mistakes to avoid in vet school. So if you're anxious about finishing vet school, not sure of your plans, I hope that you can walk away with at least a little bit of insight from veterinarians who have recently been in shoes like yours. So tonight, I'm excited to be joined by 2 amazing veterinarians from Hometown Vet Partners, Dr. Abigail Maynard and Dr. Deja Samuels. And before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone that if you have any questions at all during the webinar, please put them into the Q&A box below and we will answer them as they come up. With that, I'll introduce myself. Dr. Shannon Gregoire. I'm from Central Massachusetts. I went to undergrad out here and then flew across the country to go to vet school at Western University College of Health Sciences, College of Veterinary Medicine. After graduation, I did not do an internship. I ended up going to a busy small animal practice back on the East Coast, actually down in Connecticut, and stayed there for about a year until I decided to do some traveling because I knew that practice ownership was something that I always wanted to do, and I wanted to see more of a broad scape of small animal practices. And so I've been doing that for about 18 months and hope to purchase my own small animal hospital here in the next couple months. So some exciting things happening personally for me and professionally. Dr. Abigail Maynard is a wonderful veterinarian from Barbados, and she went to veterinary school in St. George's University in 2017. In 2023, she was actually honored with the Emerging Leader Award by the Minnesota Veterinary Medical Association, and a recognition that celebrates outstanding achievements and leadership within the veterinary profession. Dr. Abby was also appointed by now Vice President candidate Tim Walz to the Minnesota Board of Animal Health, where she serves as the veterinarian specializing in companion animals. In this capacity, she plays an amazing role in shaping policies and regulations that impact animal health and welfare all across the beautiful state of Minnesota. And secondly, we have Dr. Deja, who was most recently in our listeners' shoes out of the 3 of us. She is a 2024 graduate from Ross University School of Veterinary Medicine and currently works at Hometown Vet Partners in Schaumburg, Illinois. Dr. Deja grew up in the south suburbs of Chicago and then traveled to New Orleans and to attend Dillard University, where she got her bachelor's degree in biology, which then led with her passion for animals into veterinary school. She loves dermatology, surgery, and incorporating integrative alternative medicine therapies into her practice. She has 1 dog, Moon, and a guinea pig named Cocoa Butter. So thank you all for joining me, and now we're going to dive into our top 5 mistakes. So Dr. Deja and Dr. Abby, I'm not sure who wants to take the first one, but our first mistake is not taking the NAVLE seriously.
Not taking the NAVLE seriously is really, when I hear that, what I think about is not preparing yourself for how rigorous the study for the NAVLE can be and not figuring out your test taking style. I would think those would be the 2 biggest issues or problems that I could see arising with the NAVLE. What I mean by not figuring out or not realizing just how rigorous study can be, you really should be studying for the NAVLE all throughout your clinical year. I know you won't retain that information months away, but the repetitiveness of it will help you to retain it. And so going over the same things over and over, whatever you use, whether it's vet candies, NAVLE prep, whatever system you're using to go through the material, you need to start that from the beginning of your clinical year. With regards to your test taking style, I would suggest doing a lot of the questions that can come up, like those example questions, those prep questions, going over it and recognizing how you naturally take questions. Are you the type where you need to read every answer? Are you the type where you need to read the question and break it down into parts where you can see what is being asked, what is it being asked about, and what is the answer that they are most likely looking for? For me, for example, I need to read the question as fast as possible and pick with my gut. Whatever my gut said is the right answer, that's the answer that I'm picking. I can't look back at it. I'm not going over it. I pick it and move on, because whenever I change an answer, I will get it wrong. And so whatever your style is, the only way you can know that is the more you practice questions and figuring that out. Those would be, I would think, the top things I would say we don't do well enough in taking the NAVLE seriously.
Yeah, Abby, thank you for those. I think those are really two big points that everyone should know what their test taking skill level is and, what their best style is for them personally, because everyone's a little bit different. And also, yes, starting to study very early, because it comes up quick and it'll catch you if you're not ready. And if your test date is in November, you should be starting 6 to 9 months ahead of time, studying all of that clinical year. What about you, Dr. Deja?
I definitely agree, especially in finding your test taking style. Personally, for me, I was the type that I have to read the whole question. I have to read all the options, and I still second guess myself. But similar to Dr. Abby, I really try to go with what do I see first, what sort of speaks to me, as well as I think for me it was also in sort of the scope of the clinical year, trying to find time to prioritize it. I feel like a lot of times that we sort of get stuck in the day-to-day activities of what do I need to do for this rotation, or what coursework do I need to do to prepare. And sometimes NAVLE prep sometimes gets on the back burner with that. So I think not only prioritizing it, but having some sort of structure to set that. Like with our vet prep course, I think having those weekly quizzes, having a set time to actually take that time to study, take a quiz, sort of reassess how you're doing over time before you take the NAVLE, I think was really important. And I think it's something I wish I would have incorporated more during my NAVLE studies. But I think especially having that structure and learning your style, but also trying to let go of distractions. So whether that's family, whether it is school, whether it is some other personal reasons, making sure that this is a big step to you becoming a veterinarian. So we definitely need to focus on that and at least incorporate it in our daily activities.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because hearing both of you talk about the best way you guys study, I'm also a little bit different, where I read the whole question and I try to picture what answer I think is correct. And then I go look for the answer that I think, most similarly match what I was thinking, because a lot of times if I read into answers, other ones too much, it can sway me in a direction that may not be the best correct answer. So I tried not to think about the other ones as much there too. And I helped Vet Candy kind of formulate our study calendar as well. I think that's really important, is to really take it in bite-sized chunks so it's not too overwhelming and you're not spending 8 hours on the weekends trying to study for all the missed time that you made during the week. So taking 15-20 minutes even every night when you're home and exhausted, and just sitting waiting to relax in bed and just going through a couple questions or doing a quick quiz can really be helpful long term when you repeatedly see all that information. So our next mistake is not setting proper boundaries, whether that's personal, professional, or, inter-classmate boundaries. Kind of talk about how maybe you had a boundary that you are glad that you set, or one that looking back you wish you had set so that you were more able to, finish vet school strong or be more confident about the NAVLE in your first year.
I think the biggest boundary for me was sort of setting boundaries for my family. One being that I'm sort of the first vet, sort of the first doctor. It's a big deal for my family. And for me, I got a lot of questions of what should I do with my dog? Or what do you think about this issue? Meanwhile, I'm still in my clinical year trying to figure things out for myself. And definitely all those questions sort of made me second guess myself. Did I know all the information that I was learning, as well as while I'm helping you, how am I helping to study for the NAVLE? Do I have other coursework? And I think that was a big boundary that I had to establish with my family and say, hey, I would love to help, but I do have to take care of these things. I'm not necessarily a doctor yet. I would love to help you, but I do need to prioritize myself in this moment. And I think that's okay. I think you have to express it from a place that you do care, you do want to help, but to help, you have to help yourself at times.
For me, I would say a boundary that I've had to set is honestly a boundary with myself. For me, I love vet med. It's all I've ever wanted to do since I was 5. And I get involved in a lot of different things. And it's not necessarily something that I did in vet school. So if I think back to it, I did get involved in a lot in vet school, but I tend to overextend myself. And so I will join this organization and this club and that club, and I'll do this and I'll do that. And then at the end of the week, I don't even have time for me. And so the boundary that I had to set for myself was pace yourself. Like, you don't have to sign up for everything. It's not every extended opportunity that you have to take. Pace yourself and make sure that in all of the giving or all of the things that you're doing, make sure that you're prioritizing you too. That was a boundary that I kind of had to give myself, which isn't necessarily an in-school thing, but it was something I had to learn very early on as a new grad for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, there's opportunities everywhere and everyone encourages you to take them. And I think, taking opportunities is definitely a great thing to do, but really choose your opportunities with, a lot of thought and a lot of deciding on whether this opportunity is actually going to help you toward a goal, or are you doing it so you can help an organization, which is wonderful, but, is it going to extend your resources to the point where you're exhausted and you can't, keep up with the minimum things that you need to do to make sure that you're successful and you're a good doctor when you get out of school. And I did have family members trying to ask me questions too early as well, to which I, also had to struggle with, I'm not, quite ready to, help you quite yet. But I think, if you give me some more time, maybe a year or so, and I'll be good to go answering all your questions. I think it's something like Danielle mentioned in the comments, a lot of high performing women, a lot of women in medicine or high achieving careers really struggle with, because we try to do everything and we try to be everything for everybody, but we also have to be the number one for ourselves. So thank you both for that reminder. Our number 3 mistake is getting over imposter syndrome. I'm really excited to see what you guys think about, imposter syndrome, either in school, out of school, how you feel about it now, and how that has changed.
I smiled when I heard this one because it is something, I feel like every veterinarian it's near and dear to their hearts. For me, imposter syndrome looked differently in vet school and than it does in clinical practice. For me, in vet school, I was often one of one, meaning I was the only student from the Caribbean or the only person of color in classes. And so the imposter syndrome was, do I belong here? Like, what am I doing here? Does everyone think I'm a joke? Does everyone wonder why I'm here? And so that was my imposter syndrome in vet school. In clinical practice, it's more, sometimes it creeps up and it's like, is that what that pet needs? Do you actually know what you need to treat them with? Are you the best vet for this pet? Maybe they should go somewhere else. It's not as loud as it used to be, but sometimes it creeps up. And how I deal with that is, hey, maybe I'm not the best vet, but I'm the vet here now. And what can I do right now? What can I do to help this pet right now? And I think that matters more. I also try to tell myself, because what I hear my imposter voice saying, which I've named it, by the way, my parents had a name for me that thankfully someone advised them not to name me. I'm not going to say it on air, but that's the name of my imposter voice. And I just basically, how I manage it is perfection isn't real. And I think my imposter voice is trying to make me achieve perfection. And it's trying to tell me you're not perfect, so you're not worthy. And that's not true. Any effort that I give, especially if it's my best effort, matters. And that's what I try to tell myself when my imposter voice gets loud. And I'm valid, I'm worthy, I matter. It doesn't matter where I come from, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. My origin, none of that matters. If I'm doing my best and if I'm showing up and doing my best every day, that is what matters. And that helps me quiet my imposter voice. And since someone shared their imposter voice name, I will tell you my imposter voice name is Philippa.
Oh, that's pretty.
I agree. I think definitely there's two sides of imposter syndrome for me. I think throughout vet school for me, it came from a place of being an overachiever. I feel like growing up, I was sort of always at the top of my class, always getting all A's. And once I got to vet school, I struggled. And I was like, okay, is this really what I'm supposed to do with my life? Am I right for this? And over time, I had to commit, sort of change my learning style and realize that, no matter what I struggled with, if I truly wanted to pursue this, I could, just based upon what I did previously, as far as continuing with school, being great in that. So I think over time, it took me a lot of self-talk. I am a person of affirmation. So every day I try to look in the mirror and say, hey, you can do this. You're totally capable. You wouldn't have made it this far if you weren't. So I think that is a big thing that helped me ease my imposter syndrome. I think it's still something that I deal with. I think a lot of people still in vet med deal with. As far as other ways to deal with imposter syndrome, I think it also comes from a place of comparing yourself, like Dr. Abby said. So realizing you are your own person. Everybody is not the same. So you have your own talents, you have your own abilities that maybe other people aren't able to do. Maybe you're the best at applying catheters, inserting catheters, and other people within your hospital struggle. So I think it's just realizing that you have a place, you are unique, and you have a right to be there. And I think it's also reframing your negative thoughts. Sometimes you can always, in the back of your mind at night, wonder, did I do this right? Sometimes for me, it's, do I really know what this condition is? Do I know how to treat this? Is this really like a textbook case, or could this be something different than what I've learned over the past couple of years? So reframing yourself and saying, hey, I did the best that I could. I am truly capable. It's always good to look back sometimes and at your textbooks sometimes and refresh yourself. But I think over time, it just takes a lot of affirmation, constantly talking to yourself and, reminding yourself that you are unique, you are capable.
Yeah, I think you guys both brought up some really amazing points. And if I had to name my imposter voice based off of how Abby named hers, mine would be Nicole. My name was almost Nicole, but my cousin was born like a week before me, so that was not my name.
That's such a pretty name.
Oh, thanks. Yours is too. We have such pretty imposter women in our head. But
And for myself.
yeah, Dr. Deja will have to find a name now and get back to us on the name for hers. But I think something that really struck me while I was in my 4th year clinic too was actually in an equine surgery rotation. And this surgeon was doing a dehiscence repair. And, they're not very common, but they can be really complicated. And, he was humble enough to open his surgery textbook while he was doing this dehiscence surgery for someone who had been a surgeon for probably longer than I've been alive. And it was really humbling to see like someone with such a high skill level and so many surgeries under his belt, still unafraid in front of a student and intern to open a textbook and follow his textbook to save that horse's surgery. And I was just like, it made me respect him a lot more. And kind of showed me that no matter where you are in your career, like everyone's not sure sometimes, and that's okay. And if you can get 1% better every day, I think you'll be a lot better off for it. And I think that your patients and your community will be a lot better off for you getting 1% better every day.
I think also to touch on that, finding someone that you trust to talk with, someone maybe also dealing with that imposter syndrome or some sort of lack of confidence or some sort like that. But whether it's a colleague, whether it's a mentor, Dr. Abby has been my mentor. And we've definitely talked about my insecurities and things that I'm sort of more afraid of as far as being new into veterinary medicine. So finding someone you truly trust to talk with, someone who could possibly be relatable to you, I think also helps.
We'll be right back with more Vet Candy.
You are listening to All Creatures, How to Survive the End of the World, based on a short story by Dr. Jill Lopez.
I don't know who will even read this. I guess someone may find these notes eventually, maybe years from now, if there are any survivors. For the record, I didn't think doing someone a simple favor would result in me standing here on the roof of my practice praying to be rescued.
Kyra, are you okay? You're bleeding.
It's okay. He didn't mean it. He was scared, and I probably just scared him. Look, just a tiny scratch.
I'm here in Riverton, where a series of aggressive dog incidents has the community on edge. Over the past few hours, multiple residents have reported being attacked by what appears to be a pack of dogs. The injuries vary in severity, with some individuals requiring medical attention. I spoke with local authorities who are advising residents to stay indoors.
Inform public health officials. They might need to respond more broadly. Keep me posted. This is an alarming case. Be careful, guys. Really careful. This is an alarming case.
Okay, if the door breaks down, we're done. If it doesn't, we're stranded up here until we die of thirst. If that doesn't happen, we'll eventually run out of food and starve to death. Or maybe we die of thirst first, then food? I can't remember. But either way, our options are looking pretty dreary.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Run!
Now let me focus on getting you out of here.
How to Survive the End of the World features lead actors Clay and Caitlin Palmer, along with Angela Stoyanovska and Martin Manev. The show was crafted and produced by audio engineer Vasco Kostovsky, alongside Vet Candy. You can tune into All Creatures on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, or your preferred podcast platform.
And if anyone has any questions too, feel free to put them in the Q&A box below. I've been watching the chat box, so I hopefully don't miss anybody's comments. And for mistake number 4 is our not setting goals. So can you guys talk to a point where, either you set a goal and you're glad you did, or some point in time where you didn't set a goal and then ended up achieving something. You're just like, oh, maybe I should have reached for that a little bit more, or that was something that maybe I could have done sooner or better if I had actually voiced that and tried to work towards it.
I don't have a not set a goal scenario. I'm kind of okay. For a long time in my life, I never considered myself type A. But as I get older and I look back, I'm like, maybe I'm a lot more type A than I realize. But when I hit 21, I actually made a 40-year plan for my life. I know that sounds insane when I verbalize it. But what I did was I set myself broad goals. So there were things that I wanted to achieve. But what I wanted to be clear about was that I didn't have to know how I was going to achieve it. Because I didn't want myself to become so pigeonholed in that, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do. And so I would say I only check that plan maybe once a year. And I just see where did I align? Where did my journey take me differently? what have I achieved already? Maybe I said I would do this from year 30 to 40, but I did it in year 20 to 30. So now what new goal do I want to add on there? And for me, even though it's not something I check regularly, just having that guideline keeps me focused on my like ultimate goals, I guess you could say, on a more day-to-day basis, especially in the role that I'm right now as a partner doctor with Hometown. Boy, if I don't set goals, and I mean, it's just like a day-to-day thing of today I am going to do this, this, and this. If I don't do that, my day unravels. There's so many things to do on a daily basis. As a vet, you've got callbacks, you got to see your rooms. There's online prescriptions that you need to approve. And sometimes it feels so overwhelming to not be able to achieve everything in one day. But the reality is you can't achieve everything in one day. What I do is I say, okay, today my goals are this. All I've got to do is achieve this. Tomorrow, my goals are going to be this. And that helps me look at the different puzzle pieces that I have to think about every day in a more structured way. Without that, my days would just be so chaotic. And I would also become pretty frustrated, I would say, or dissatisfied with the way that my days were going, because I would have just this pile of not done, not done, not done, not done, not done tasks. And I have been there before, and it is really hard to be there, and it's hard to get back from there. And so that's how goal setting for me helps. With your career, I would suggest whatever you want to do, whatever things you want to do, I would suggest setting a career plan. And that's going to be a series of goals in a structured format. The reason being, vet med is huge, which is one of my favorite things about it. You can do whatever you want to do in vet med, go get specialized, go work in aquatics, go work in wildlife. There's so many things that you can do. And if you set yourself a structured plan, like, okay, my first job, I want to do as much as I can, learn as much as I can. Doesn't necessarily have to be an internship, maybe just a practice that's very busy where I will get a lot of experience. So that's my goal. That's what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to do that for like 2 years. The next 5 years after that, don't care where I go, but I want to be in a role where I can build upon my previous experience, but maybe I don't just want to develop clinically. Maybe I also want to just start to develop my leadership acumen, my business acumen, whatever. And when you set yourself weird, structured goals like that, the trajectory of your career will take off more than if you just let it flow. When you take control of that, I think it really, really allows the trajectory of your career to just take off. And that would be my recommendation for goal setting.
Goal setting for me is something that I wish I would have started a little while ago. It has always been my goal to be a vet, always been my goal to run a practice, but never knew how exactly I would get there. Definitely, I'm grateful for the opportunity with Hometown, that they have sort of that mentorship with working with a mentor to not only work on your clinical practice, but as well as your business aspect. So I think not only setting goals, but for me, I also am working on setting those smaller goals that help me build up to those bigger goals. So right now I'm sitting with my mentor and seeing, can we create a plan so that weekly I'm learning, weekly I'm checking in with her to sort of within the next year or so, I am fully confident with running my own practice, becoming a partner doctor. And I think it definitely eases feeling overwhelming every day. So not, feeling overwhelmed with your daily activities, like Dr. Abby said, and you sort of ease your mind at night of, am I doing enough? Am I sort of marking these goals? Am I reaching towards those goals? I think is helpful for me.
Yeah, great answers, you guys. Thank you so much for those. Yeah, and I think I didn't realize I did this until, maybe college or into vet school, but I kind of reverse plan, or I set a goal, or like, I want to get into vet school. I'm like, okay, well, what do I have to do to get into vet school? Well, first I have to get good grades in undergrad. But to get good grades in undergrad, I have to get into a good undergrad. And to get into a good undergrad, I have to do well in high school. What do I have to do well in high school, to kind of get there? And I think setting a far off goal, but then kind of taking the steps backwards. Like, how do I actually get myself there? Because it's one thing to have aspirations or dreams for something, but you have to have an action plan. And I think kind of working backwards to try to figure out, what those stepping stones will be for you is really important. And, my path hasn't been what I had expected it to be throughout vet school or since I've graduated. And I don't think I really tried to set myself into exactly like, I'm going to do this years 1 through 3 and this year's 4 through 7. Like, no, I just had like, what I've always wanted to do. And I've kind of, went through day-to-day life, but also like tried to take opportunities or invest in certain aspects that I thought would help in my further aspirations to kind of get me in the rooms with the people I needed to be in the rooms with, or talk about, things I needed to talk about in order to get to where I want to be. Setting small goals for day to day, like Dr. Abby was saying, and then like Dr. Deja with setting bigger goals and trying to really just make sure that you kind of keep track of everything. Being very organized and being type A can be really helpful. We also had a really good question from Ricardo in the chat. He asked, how do you deal with comparison? I guess he's asking, looking comparison with your colleague, with dealing with the person you look to be in the future and comparing yourself to that person you dream of and being disappointed that you're not. It's a deep question.
I really like this question. I would say there's a certain measure of comparison with yourself that I do believe is healthy because it helps you see where am I at today and where do I believe I can get to? And what am I lacking between this person and that person that I need to work on to get to be that person? That there's a healthy level of comparison that exists. If you're like me, where you can get a little bit obsessive about why am I not that person? What is wrong with me? Then that becomes unhealthy. And I struggle with that every day. And what I would say is, I talked about it a little bit earlier when we talked about imposter syndrome. That's Philippa again talking to me and telling me that the me I am today isn't worthy, isn't valid, isn't good enough, doesn't matter what I achieve, That's Philippa. And what I have found, yes, she does need to chill out. What I have found is if I respond, I know I sound crazy saying this, but if I respond to Philippa and I say, that's not true. Like, you look at what you have achieved. Like, look at what you have done. Look at where you have come from. Think of Abigail when Abigail just graduated. Look at Abigail now. Like, look at the difference. Like, you have done so much in the time that you have had. And so why is it that you're focused more on the Abigail that you could be? Why aren't you grateful to the Abigail you are now, getting you from where you were when you first began? And I try to have that conversation with myself. I would say it's also really helpful, not just to have a mentor, but to have mentees, because sometimes like a mentee will come to me with a question and I'm able to answer it. And for them, they're like, oh my God, you're amazing. And that like little tiny bump is like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I am. Maybe I am not so bad. Maybe I do know what I'm talking about. And you don't have to know everything to have a mentee. Even if you're in vet school, if you're in year 4, there's a year 1 student that could really use your advice. And so you're never at a level in your life where there isn't someone that you can help. And sometimes doing that helping helps build you up too. And it helps reinforce what you know. And that can be helpful. So I would say not just having a mentor who can help tell you, hey, listen, Philippa is silly. Like, don't even listen to her. But also having someone that's like, hey, I need help with this. Can you help me? And being able to answer reaffirms yourself and also helps them. And I think that's really nice.
I think for me, it was mainly letting go of what I should have done. So not just saying, oh, you're not worth this, but yeah, you did do that, but you could have also done that and done it a lot better. I think that's sort of the comparison I have for me. And I think what helps me is realizing, again, no one is perfect, realizing that we all make mistakes and other people have different goals that they want. they might not necessarily have your goals or the same things that you want to achieve, and realizing that you can achieve a lot of things, and reminding yourself every day that, you are your own person, you're able to achieve this. I think also reminding yourself that, again, having other people around you, a mentor, a colleague that is able to talk with you about not comparing yourself, even uplifting you every day. You guys can send a message to each other and saying, hey, remind you that you are great, you're doing things. And
Yeah, thank you both for those really heartfelt answers. I think everybody can really take a lot from those, and it's a really personal question. I think for me, looking comparison with colleagues or peers, whether it be other maybe general practice doctors or our specialist colleagues, there can be some. Yeah, Nicole can rear her head a lot, but I think you also have to take into account, how long I've been doing it versus how long they've been doing it. And they probably made a lot more mistakes and trip ups than me because they've been doing it a lot longer, and their, experience is a lot more robust. Kind of taking that into account that everyone's in a different part of their journey. But I think just reaching out and talking to different doctors, like they all have, even like the triple boarded specialist that you think knows everything under the sun in every textbook, like still doesn't. And they'll tell you that they don't, but that they work to try to do their best for their patients every day, just like you do. And that to never be disappointed that you're not that person that you want to be yet, because you're on your way. I think if you have that vision of who you want to be someday and you try to get that 1% better, or try to, take that, step as soon as you can, to get to, what does that person look like? What do they look like professionally? What do they look like personally? What does their life look like in the clinic? What does it look like outside the clinic? And kind of set goals and a plan for you to, achieve that over time. Don't be so hard on yourself that you're not, retired at 35 with 6 beach houses and, a yacht in the ocean. And you're 27 and you're like, why am I not that 35-year-old person? Well, you never know what's going to happen and what your path might be. So I think as long as you're actively trying to meet that dream version of you, that you shouldn't be disappointed, and just know that you'll meet them someday. And then you won't even realize it. You'll just be so happy living your life. And you're like, wow, I think I did it. And then I think this really lends into our last mistake really well, of limiting yourself, and how limiting yourself either personally or professionally, can really trip you up. And so I'd love to hear both of your responses on how, you can mitigate limiting yourself, either professionally or personally.
I think it starts with finding your passion in vet med. And it's okay to have multiple passions within vet med, whether you like small animal, but you want to do wildlife on the side or do emergency. I think that was something I was also interested in. But taking the time to not only figure out what you're interested in, but creating some sort of organization to try and pursue those passions, I think is the biggest thing for me, and realizing that vet med is so expansive. So there's no limit, whether you like community outreach while doing your small animal work, that's always possible. And realizing that we are all very, very skilled. We're all very type A. We want to be perfectionists. We want to do a lot of things and help. And that's okay to help. Don't limit yourself. I felt like sometimes, especially right after graduation, I had done so much, worked so hard within those 4 years. Sometimes I was like, I just want to take a little break and, not do as much. Or sometimes I felt like I second guessed whether I wanted to be a partner doctor or own a practice, and realizing that this is just a stepping stone, that you want to make sure that you're happy in the long run. And that comes with not limiting yourself, pushing yourself to achieve those goals was the biggest thing for me.
Well, for me, This is a topic that I talk about a lot with vet students, in that what Deja said, vet med is so expensive. And what I like to say is vet med has room for everybody, and it has room for all of your interests. And so how I like to explain it is, okay, what are you into? What do you like? Not just vet med. What do you like? Do you like art? Cool. Do you like video games? Sure. There's so many things that you can do in vet med that not just focuses on, I want to be a vet, but who do you want to be? Who does Deja want to be? Who does Shannon want to be? Like, who do you want to be, and what things make you you? And find a way to weave the things that make you you into being a veterinarian. And I also want to say, it might seem a little bit counterintuitive, but you're not just a veterinarian. Being a veterinarian isn't who you are, it's what you do. And so not limiting yourself into, I'm just a vet, that's what I focus on, that's what I do every day, that's, I eat, breathe, sleep, vet med. Combine your interests, your passions into veterinary medicine, and watch your career become this beautiful tapestry that was made for you by you. That's my big overarching recommendation for how you shouldn't limit yourself, and also not limit your career. I find when I talk to vet students, I say, what do you want to be? And they say, oh, I want to be a small animal vet, or, oh, I want to be a specialist, or, oh, I want to do this. Then I start asking them a couple other questions, and I hear, I do really like aquatic animals. I do really like exotics. And I said, okay, so when I ask you, what do you want to be? You said a very linear answer. You said, I want to be this. And then I talked to you a little bit more, and you shared with me, I love this, I love that, I love this. So I want to ask you, why is it that you think you can only do this, and you can't somehow weave those other things into the role that you're taking in your career? And that starts them thinking and realizing that actually I could probably do that. And just giving an example, there was a job that I once did. I shared that I was really interested in video games, and that I was really great at talking in the chat board. I was really good at talking trash in the chat board. I could manage the chat board. And that led to me getting this chat job, because it was something where I talked with clients virtually in chat. But because I was so used to doing that, and I mentioned that in the interview, that was something that they felt would help me do well in this role. And so that's just a small example of, I didn't just talk about the skills that I had as a vet. I talked about my other interests, and that helped me in the position that I was going for. And so that's something that I would say not to limit yourself on. Don't just think, okay, vet med stuff, I learned this in vet school, da-da-da-da-da. Think about all of the other experiences that you've had throughout your life. It makes you who you are, which will influence the vet that you are. And so bring all of that into your career and make your career good for you, make it who you are, and then you'll see just how amazing of a vet you'll be, because your career will match you. You aren't trying to match some vision. That's what I would say, is not to limit yourself.
Yeah, I think those are both phenomenal responses by both of you. I think it's really important not to put yourself in a box or in someone's definition of what a veterinarian should or could be, or what anyone thinks you should be in your career. I think I also have my persona as Dr. Gregoire, and she only exists within clinic hours on clinic premise. And then for the most part, she kind of stays there. And I'm Shannon at all other times, wherever I am. I don't introduce myself as a veterinarian anywhere. I kind of keep that, a little bit of separation just for me personally, so that I can enjoy my hobbies and my other things as Shannon, and not as a veterinarian, because I love my job and I love this field, but I can't be that doctor all the time. It's a lot of responsibility and a lot of weight, and sometimes I just don't want to shoulder it. So for me, it's been super helpful to kind of separate those two parts of myself, as this is the doctor side, and then this is just me and who I am with my friends and my family. And when I go out to the winery, or when we go, to the beach and hang out with friends. So I think sometimes that's been a struggle that I've seen other colleagues deal with, and I tried to early on try to set back to the boundary setting and the self-limiting to not box myself in. Ricardo says, did you ever feel or currently feel that you sometimes reduce the goals you say when people ask because you feel that people don't believe you can achieve them, or the people asking don't have those aspirations? For example, when people ask me what I want to be, I just give them a basic answer because I don't think I need to share my goals, aspirations all the time, because they will say, oh, good luck with all that.
I would say I don't, because of two reasons. One is it keeps me accountable. So I do share all of my crazy, wacky, like lofty goals. It keeps me accountable because then my brain says, you told me you were going to do that. And if you don't do that, they'll be like, yep, I knew she wasn't going to do it. And so it keeps me, and it keeps me accountable because it's like, okay, I said it out loud. What does it take for me to get this? I got to make this happen. And it's also for me, what Deja said, an affirmation. If I say this out loud, it means that I'm going to achieve it. It means it's going to happen. So I say it out loud as much as I'm asked, because, yep, I want to do ABC because I believe I can do ABC. Whether you think I can, whether I think I can, I'm going to go do ABC. And so I don't diminish my goals. I guess a third reason why I don't, when I'm saying it out loud, is I like to think of myself as I'm a nobody from nowhere. I grew up on an island that's 300,000 people tops. It doesn't even show up on every world map there is. Sometimes it's completely missing. And I want to, that if there is anybody else that also feels like they're nobody from nowhere, if I say, this is a goal that I have and I achieve it, I want that if there was somebody else that felt like they're nobody from nowhere and they see me, a fellow nobody from nowhere, achieve it, they can say, I can do this too. That, what for me is the biggest goal I have in my career, is that somebody looks at something that I've done and says to themselves, hey, if Abby could do this, I can do it too. And so I don't diminish my goals when I'm talking to people for those reasons.
I agree with Danielle in the chat board saying that if people react that way, they're projecting their own insecurities, as well as maybe it comes from a place of, I wish I had that. For me, I think it was more so myself, not expressing my goals, being more specific with what they are, just because I wasn't sure or I was worried if I would achieve them myself, and not necessarily worried that other people wouldn't believe that I would achieve those goals. And over time, I think talking with it more, I think helped me be more confident in those long-term goals, expressing what I was truly interested in. I think as far as finding myself, finding my passions, I think for a while I was truly interested in integrative alternative medicine, but while I was attending school, even in clinics, it's something not discussed a lot. So sometimes I wondered, okay, am I on the right track? Is this good medicine? Is this something I should be talking about? And I think over time, talking with people who were not only interested, but talking with other people, regular, normal people outside of the profession that were willing to listen as far as my goals and discussing those, I think sort of encouraged me more to achieve them. And I think that sometimes if people have those doubts about you, or sort of have those negative comments, or not necessarily negative, but sort of not positive or encouraging, I feel you should take it as, okay, I want to prove you wrong, or I want to show you that I'm going to achieve this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think affirmations and manifestations are so powerful. The things that you say to yourself and the voice that you listen to, not Nicole. We do not listen to Nicole or Philippa. And we keep working on those things all the time, and really, imagining and putting our efforts toward what we want to be and not what other people don't think we can be is really important for, your own development and your own future. If they say good luck with all that, say, thank you, sir. I really appreciate that. And go to another room, because you're in the wrong room talking to the wrong people. Like, find a room where people are supportive of you, who are excited to hear what you want to do and really support you. Say, oh, yeah, well, I know so-and-so does this and this. Like, I'll connect you. Like, that is the person that you want to go look for and search out to help you with your goals. You don't want to waste your time on those negative Nancys over there, like probably wishing that they had done something better for themselves. And that's fine, but that's what they have to deal with, not you. So if you have these really lofty goals and aspirations, just find a better room with better people and better answers, because they are there and they will help you. We have such a small community in veterinary medicine that you're only 2 or 3 degrees of separation away from someone who can help you or give you an answer or a connection to someone to maybe bring you closer to reaching a goal. Thank you guys both for, joining us here today. Do you have any last burning remarks or anything you'd like to have for closing statements?
Yeah, I would say that too, in believing in yourself, and don't diminish yourself as a new grad, as a fourth year. You have so much to offer. You are so valid, and don't think, well, I'm just a fourth year, or I'm just a new grad. You're not just anything. There ain't nothing just about you. You are valid, worthy, meant to be here, meant to be doing what you're doing. And so don't diminish yourself, and don't let anybody else diminish you. And if I could say one last thing about those naysayers, or those people that are like, good luck with that, use it as fuel. I am so competitive, and I wish somebody would tell me, well, okay, sure. Because my answer is going to be, oh, okay, bet. No, I'm really going for it. No, I really want to do it. And so just use it as fuel. Yeah, exactly. So just use that as fuel. But you're valid, you're worthy, you're meant to be here. The pets are grateful that you're here. The families are grateful that you're here. You're going to make an impact. You matter. Look, that would be my biggest thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Ricky, for all those amazing questions. You had some really good conversation from those. So I hope everyone was able to take a little bit from that and from our experiences as well as, new grads and developing into seasoned doctors. Thank you guys all for coming. It was a really good time discussing all of these important things with you. We hope you found it valuable. You can connect with any of us on Instagram or LinkedIn, and feel free to shoot us a DM or a message, and we'll be more than happy to respond or continue the conversation with you. If you're interested in exploring a path to partnership, reach out to Hometown Veterinary Partners, as they offer student rep programs, externships, and mentorship for new grads. And once again, thank you guys so much for attending. And don't forget to look at Vet Candy's NAVLE Prep program that is free for veterinary students. We have some of our 100%ers joining us tonight. So thank you so much, and phenomenal job on your NAVLE Prep so far. You guys are going to kill it. And we hope you have a great rest of your night.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
It's Vet Candy.
Vet Candy.
It's Vet Candy Radio.